If your Minecraft churches look like someone dropped a modern building into the 14th century, this tutorial is for you. Today I'm going to show you how to build a monastery that feels ancient, weathered, and real. Plus a cemetery that actually tells the story instead of just being a grid of headstones. So far we've built the industry, we've built the roads, we've built the food supply, but a medieval village without faith is missing its soul. So today we cross the river one more time to build the monastery, and the cemetery that reminds everyone why it matters. Welcome back to week 10 of our medieval village series. When we started this, we had an empty field and then a blacksmith. Now look at what we've built. We've got industry, roads, bridges, a tavern, crop fields, a storage barn. The village is now feeding itself. It's trading, it's connected. But there's a building missing from every medieval skyline, and it's probably the most important one: the monastery. So in actual Middle Ages, the monastery wasn't just a church, it was a hospital, it was the library, the school, the spiritual center. It was where the monks lived and worked. It was where people were buried, and that's what we're building today. Not just a chapel, but a full monastery complex, complete with a cemetery that sits against its wall. By the end of this video, your village won't just be industrial and agricultural, it'll have faith, it'll have history, it'll have permanence. So let's get to building. Location is everything on this build, and I need you to think differently than you have for the entire rest of the series. Every building so far has been integrated into the village, ground level, accessible, part of the street layout, but this monastery is different. It needs to feel separate, it needs to feel elevated, a place that you actually have to make an effort to reach. So, what you need to do is you need to find the highest natural hill near your village. If you don't have one, you're going to build one, but natural is always better. So for my monastery, I'm going to put it on the hill directly east of the rest of our town. I think it's east anyway. However, yeah, it'll be looking down and across the rest of the entire village. The monks would have chosen this spot very deliberately, so it's close enough to serve the community and elevated enough to feel closer to the heavens. Now for the footprint. This is going to be the biggest building we've done yet, and it needs to be. The main chapel is going to be 13 blocks wide by 21 blocks long. That's going to be our central structure, the nave of the church. Then we're going to be adding two wings, a residential wing on one side, 9 by 11, and a chapter house on the other side, 7 by 9. These connect directly to the main chapel. Then the cemetery is going to go along whichever side you have room. Historically, the cemetery would go against the east wall. In medieval tradition, the dead were buried on the east side of the church, facing the rising sun. If you can add that detail. It costs you absolutely nothing, but it sells the entire historical accuracy of the build. With all of that out of the way, it's time to build. The foundation is going to be andesite, smooth and normal, just 1 block high. Just remember though, this isn't a barn or a house. A monastery was built to last centuries, and that means a very heavy foundation. Stone bricks, cracked stone bricks, occasional mossy stone brick near the ground, and even the very spare use of cobblestone can be added to show repairs and age. Now for the frame. Instead of oak logs, we're going to use stone bricks at every corner. Now consistency does matter across the build series, however, this full stone construction of the monastery hopes to force the separation from the village. But here's the difference. These pillars go 8 high. The ceiling and the chapel need to feel cavernous. When someone walks through the door, they should immediately look up at the height of the ceiling. The pillars on the wings need to only be 4 or 5 blocks high though. After your pillars are constructed, connect them with horizontal stone bricks at the 7 block mark. This is going to be our beam line. The walls themselves are going to sit 1 block behind the frame, creating that depth that we've used on every build since the very beginning. Just remember though, it doesn't matter where the church is built, but the entrance always faces towards the village. And this is where the main doors are going to go. They also need to feel grand, so don't think about using a single door either. So for mine, I'm going to go 3 blocks wide so I can utilize spruce trapdoors to look like heavy wooden doors. Then the stone brick pillars on either side, of course. And above the doors, I'm going to go that extra step and place an arch made of stone brick stairs and slabs. This is going to be a proper Gothic arch, not a flat lintel. Moving on to the walls of the chapel, they're going to be almost entirely stone. This is a church, not a cottage. But stone doesn't mean boring. We're using a 3 material blend for our walls. Plain stone as the base, cracked and regular stone bricks scattered throughout, and polished andesite in irregular patches. The ratio is going to be roughly 60% stone, 25% stone brick variations, and 15% andesite. Try to place the andesite in vertical streaks. Imagine water running down over the walls for decades, so it would smooth out the stone. Then place the cracked bricks near corners and under the windows where structural stress would definitely show. Now for the windows. A monastery needs light, but it also needs to feel ancient and slightly solemn. We're going to use tall, narrow windows for that. 1 block wide, 4 blocks high, spaced evenly along both walls. Try to shoot for 3 windows per side, but if you can't, that's okay. But then we're going to fill the window opening with gray stained glass panes. Colored glass would have been wildly expensive in the time, and this monastery is humble, not a cathedral. On the residential wings and chapter house, use smaller windows, 1 block wide, 2 blocks high, or 1x1s. Same gray glass. These are going to be monk quarters, not a throne room. The bell tower is the defining feature of any monastery build. Get this right and the entire silhouette sells itself. We're placing the tower at the front left corner of the chapel. It needs to rise above the main roof line by at least 6 blocks. That means the tower is going to be roughly 14 blocks tall from foundation to peak. The footprint is 5x5 at the base. That's wide enough to feel substantial, but narrow enough to read as a tower and not a secondary building. Again, stone brick pillars at all 4 corners, stone walls in between. Same palette, same depth, just taller. Somewhere around the 12 block mark, just below the top, add the bell tower. This is where the tower opens up. On all 4 faces of the tower, build an archway. 3 blocks wide, 3 blocks high. Then frame it with dark oak fences acting as louvers. Inside each arch, hang a single lantern from a chain. At night, this will glow, and from the village below, it'll look like the bell tower is lit from within. The tower roof needs to be a steep spire. It needs to come up to a point, so definitely not an A-frame roof that we used on any of the other builds. Use Deepslate blocks and stairs in a pyramid shape, narrowing by 1 block each level until you reach a single point at the top. At the peak, place a single stone brick wall and then top it with an iron bar. Coming back to the roof, the chapel roof runs the full length of the building. 21 blocks of steep pitch. Use the same stair block stair pattern from our previous builds, but with one key difference. The slope is going to be steeper. A church roof should look like it's reaching upward. Again, we use dark oak stairs for the outline, Deepslate variations for the fill. Deepslate tiles, cracked Deepslate tiles, cobbled Deepslate, and regular Deepslate. Mix them really aggressively. This roof covers the largest single span of the entire village, so it cannot look boring. At both gable ends, extend the roof 1 block past the wall. That shadow line is non-negotiable. Also, historically speaking, Christianity dominated the era that these structures were common in, so here's a Christianity-specific detail. At the peak of each gable, place this small little detail to represent a small stone cross. 1 stone brick wall, 1 stone brick slab on top. Simple, iconic, medieval. Past that, we move on to the residential and chapter house wings. They get very simple roofs. Same materials, but at a slightly lower pitch, starting from a lower point on the chapel wall. This creates the stepped roof profile that makes monastery complexes look so distinctive from above, but the roofs overlap. The wings nestle against the main chapel, and the whole thing reads as one connected building. Now with the roof constructed, we can finally tackle the space between the bottom wall and the bottom of the roof. To do that, I'm just going to extend the main pillars of stone brick up, and then on the underside of the roof, I'm going to put in some stone brick blocks there, and then the layer behind that, I'm going to put it in our wall fill, so the stone, andesite, stone brick mixture that we've used in the rest of the build. Now I know I said that glass is very expensive, and colored glass especially is very expensive, but for the middle of mine, I'm going to put a decorative glass piece. This is kind of like those stained glass portraits that you see in a lot of chapels or a lot of monasteries. Don't go overboard with it though. I'm going to put 1 collar here. You could probably get away with 2, but once you put 3 or 4, it's going to make it look incredibly wealthy, and that's not the look that we're going for here. Whenever you come over to the smaller wings here, same deal. Stone brick main pillars, stone brick along the underside of the roof, stone, andesite, stone brick mixture for the main wall. Keep it simple. Alright, with the chapel now built, we're moving on to the part that's going to set this build apart from every other church tutorial on YouTube. Historically, the cemetery sits against the east wall of the chapel. In medieval times, the churchyard was always put on the south and east sides of the church. The north side was considered very unlucky. And honestly, that's where they usually buried the unbaptized children and strangers, so yeah. Anyway, we're going to try to put our cemetery on the east side, where the morning light hits first. First off, we're going to tackle the ground. Replace all the grass in the cemetery area with a mix of coarse dirt, podzol, and the occasional grass block. This needs to be about 60% coarse dirt, 30% podzol, 10% grass. Old graveyards don't look like manicured lawns. They look worn, uneven, and sometimes even slightly neglected. This base layer sells the age of the place before you even place a single headstone. Speaking of which, now for the headstones. And do not place them in neat rows. Real medieval churchyards were chaotic. Graves overlapped, stones tilted, some were newer than others. Scatter them organically, with varying spacing. Now, talking about headstones, each headstone is going to take about 30 seconds to build. That is it. These are the 4 types you should have. There are standard graves. So this is going to be 1 stone brick wall on the ground, 1 stone brick slab on top of it. That's it. Place a coarse dirt block at the base to make it look like it's a recent burial mound. There's weathered graves. A cracked stone brick wall with mossy cobblestone slab. You can use Podzol at the base. This one's been here for a while, maybe even a couple decades. Then we move to old graves. It's just a mossy cobblestone wall. No slab, the top has broken off. Coarse dirt out in front, maybe some Podzol, partially grown over with some grass. Then we move to the smaller graves, child's graves, half the size of a normal one. A stone button on a coarse dirt block. These tend to hit harder than you'd expect. Once those are done, you will have placed maybe 12 to 15 headstones in total. Vary the orientations though. Some face east, some slightly angled, as much as you can anyway. And then use stone buttons on the ground as small grave markers for the very old, nearly forgotten plots. Now the centerpiece, the mausoleum. This is the one structure in the cemetery that actually demands attention. Build it against the cemetery wall, opposite the chapel. A small stone brick building, 5 blocks wide, 5 blocks deep, with a heavy door facing the chapel. All deep slate roof with a steep pitch. Inside, empty. Just a single stone brick slab on the floor as the tomb marker. You can also put 2 unlit candles on either side of the door, but make sure you keep the interior dark. At the entrance to the cemetery, build a lynch gate, a simple covered arch. 2 dark oak fence posts, 3 blocks apart, with dark oak slabs forming a small roof above. Hang a lantern from the center. This was the traditional spot where funeral processions would stop and a priest would meet the body before taking it into the cemetery. After that, let's move on to some atmospheric details. Place a large, gnarled tree near one corner of the cemetery. Use fence posts as exposed roots spreading into the graves. Vines hanging from the tree, a few dead bushes scattered in the corner, and at the base of the cemetery wall, let mossy cobblestone creep up from the ground. Moisture and shadow breed moss. One final touch. Scattered around the cemetery, place a few poppies and dandelions or other kind of flowers on individual grass blocks. These are flowers left by mourners. Place 1 poppy directly in front of a child's grave. It's a tiny detail, it takes 2 seconds, but someone will notice it in the comments, and that's the difference between a build and a story. Take a step back and look at what we've just built. A towering stone monastery with a bell spire, monk corners, and beside it, a cemetery that looks like it's been there for generations. This building changes your village. The blacksmith makes tools, the tavern serves ale, the barn stores grain, but the monastery? The monastery is where people come to ask why they do any of it. We are 10 weeks into our series now, guys, and the transformation from that empty field in week 1 to what we have now is genuinely wild. Industry, roads, agriculture, community, and now, faith. Your village has a soul. If this tutorial helped you add something meaningful to your medieval world, hit that like button. It genuinely does help the series keep growing. But let me know in the comments, what other buildings does your village need? We've covered industry, food, community, and now faith. What's the next district? And I'll pin the best suggestion. Next week, we're tackling something completely new for the series. I'm not going to spoil it yet, but let's just say your village is about to get a whole lot better. Remember, guys, keep building, and I'll see you later and catch you on the next one.